Hi, hello, and welcome to another video by the Wu Mao Show. Today, I am joined once more by Mr. Jerry Gray, who's coming at us from Chongqing. Me, myself, I am Ling Yi in Shandong. We've been traveling all over the place. First of all, Jerry, tell me a little bit about what's going on with you, and then we address the topic of today's video. So,
Yeah, I'm just doing a lot of traveling at the moment. Part of it is social media. I'm traveling just to see what it's like traveling under COVID, and I'm finding that it is okay. We're in Chongqing. Yesterday we left Jiangsu. Last month I was in Hunan. We're doing a lot of media stuff and just getting around China. I made a short video the other day about traveling with COVID, as I know you did
mhm.
too. And I'm finding that despite the fact there are some hurdles, of course, it's nothing's insurmountable. It's quite easy to travel around. And one amazing thing I found, Chongqing, I was able to actually get on their QR code, their health code. I have a green Chongqing health code, so I can travel anywhere inside of Chongqing now and just scan my code. It's working. Whereas in Jiangsu, I couldn't get the code, and it was quite difficult. We're going for a COVID
we
test today. Go on.
we are doing the same. We're
Yeah,
driving around the country, and when we go from one, and I've been flying around as well. I just came back from Jilin, where they
yeah,
also have a lot of COVID cases, and most of the times what it is somebody understanding where you need to click
yeah,
to
yeah.
register the foreigner, because
It,
pretty much every
it's
single
really about overcoming a tiny hurdle to avoid the excitement and the agitation, and generally you
exactly.
can. It's like, oh, here we go again. Yeah, it's not perfect, but you can get around. There's no question you can get around in China now.
Sure. And the thing is that a lot of the people that you talk to when you get to an airport, or when you're crossing in, when you exit in a highway, for example, into a new province, is that the people that are working there, they don't really know, they don't really handle that many foreigners, so they don't know exactly
No.
where to click. I've only
Mm,
had an issue once, but every other province that I've gone to, all we have to do is download that widget within either WeChat or Alipay
yeah,
and
yeah,
register as a foreigner with your passport, and that's it. No problem, no issues.
yeah.
The same
I
happened in
found
Jilin.
that
At the beginning, like we can't really register you. It
Yeah.
took 2 3 minutes from somebody who knows how to do it, and boom, everybody had a green
Oh.
code from Jilin and no issues.
Yeah, Jiangsu we didn't get. They said they couldn't register foreigners. So some provinces have it differently. They can't register unless you have an ID card. So a green card holder, a permanent resident, would be able to do it, but we couldn't, and it wasn't a big deal. I had three tests while I was
Mhm.
in Jiangsu, all at the same hospital. The test results were done on, and I made a short video of it. And did film me doing this. It was like an ATM. You walk up to this ATM and you scan your. They give you a barcode, and you scan that, and then you wait until your test is issued, just like money coming out of an ATM. Some people might not remember ATMs. They stopped using them a long time ago, didn't we?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
for us, we are in a very very tiny village called Qiguo E village in Qingdao. It's an RV park. If you haven't seen that video, the link is in the description down below. Basically, 2,400 people, and they have free tests. So we wake up in the morning, go there, get a test, come back. That's it.
Yeah.
It's a 5 minute walk for us at an RV
I,
park.
I was disgusted in Jiangsu. I had to pay for my own tests. Terrible, terrible, terrible state. It cost 4 RMB.
Oh, breaking the bank now.
Absolutely, and that included the printed result. Yeah,
The
so
paper is
it's,
worth more.
I think so. Yeah, yeah,
All right.
and,
So
and
today
yeah, again,
we,
it was a five
yep,
minute walk. Yeah, go on, carry on. Yeah, go
so
on,
easy.
go on.
We're going to be talking about Michelle Bachelet and all this noise that we're seeing around on social media about she's backtracking on what she reported when she visited China and Xinjiang in
Mm,
particular in May. When she gave her last speech from Guangzhou before she departed China, she did not mention the word genocide, and this is something that a lot of us influencers, media people, we say like that's an important part, because had she seen genocide, she would have said genocide. Had she seen forced labor, she would have said forced labor. But none of these things were said. At the time, we got to remember that there was a lot of media, particularly BBC, that was releasing some new police files that they have found, files that were riddled with lots of inconsistencies, a lot of things that were kind of strange. Do you remember what did you pick up that was kind of strange from those files from BBC?
There was some Japanese language. There was some traditional Chinese characters in there. There was a couple of things like that. There was quite a few inconsistencies in there. Um, I think what just happened was somebody, and it was very amateurish on the part of these people who are supposed to be professional human rights watchers, and it really was quite amateurish that they suddenly needed to do something to offset. Surely they had this pre-prepared. They knew Michelle Bachelet was going. They
Hmm.
knew what was happening. They knew what was coming. And then suddenly there was a rush and a rash of information or misinformation that suddenly came out, and it was really ill considered, ill thought out, and there's so many inconsistencies that it did really lose a lot of credibility.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, there were a lot of mistakes. Perhaps the worst thing of that, before we go into what we really want to talk about, was the fact that they had to take down the report from the servers for a while. They were so concerned about well, some of the mistakes that people were pointing out, like the fact that
yeah.
Adrian Sands had edited some of the files, somebody from the World Uyghur
We
Congress
get
had
cancer.
edited
Yeah,
yeah, had
yeah.
edited some of the files. So they took it down to fix it. And even after that, the metadata showed that there was a version one and a version two.
Yeah, yeah,
Very
yeah.
messy, very, very amateurish, as you said.
It,
But
it really was, and it was something that could have been, if they wanted to do it properly, it could have been prepared months in advance,
mhm,
checked, double checked, triple checked. It could have been really, really good for the pro genocide, pro forced labor camp. And in
mm,
fact, what it did was it shot them in the foot, in my
sure.
opinion. Yeah,
So there's this talk, and I would like to show this photo to you. So it's gonna cover
yeah.
us, but I would like you guys to read this as well with us. Uh, sorry, it's not this one, it's this one. So this is what is being said out there in the public. It says that the assessment on the report that she is writing, if published, will intensify politicization and block confrontation in the area of human rights, undermine the credibility of the OHCHR, and harm the cooperation between this office and member states, the letter said, referring to Bachelet's office. We strongly urge Madam High Commissioner not to publish such an assessment. So, according to this report, is China is sending letters to diplomats all over the world, yeah, that go to the United Nations
According
and
to the
discuss
report,
these
yeah.
things. According to the report, and that's very important. And
Mm,
they said that China is sending this letter asking people to vote for not releasing this report.
yeah.
Um,
Have you seen the letter, Fernando?
I
Have
have
you
not
seen
seen
it?
the letter.
No,
No.
neither has anybody else. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yes, we're going back to AA, always
Yeah,
anonymous.
yeah.
these
Attribution. Go on.
these diplomats that say, "Oh, we've seen this letter and this is what it says, but don't mention my name, don't mention my country, don't." So it's very difficult to take that seriously.
Hmm.
To,
Well,
to to say,
apparently, Reuters have seen three versions of the letter, or four versions of the letter. So this letter is in constant change. It's in a state of constant change. The letter is not final. When asked about it, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in China said it's a joint letter. It's not a
mhm,
Chinese letter now. Of course, China would be influential in creating a joint letter. I'm not going to be naive and say they're not. No, I'm not saying that people are standing up for China without China supporting them standing up. So it's a joint letter, not a Chinese letter. It's a letter that is being sent and being edited as it goes through. It's being sent in progress. So there's no finalized version of this letter. And the most important thing is that it there are headlines that say China is trying to stall, China is trying to stop Michelle Bachelet's office from releasing this letter. Michelle Bachelet will leave her post on the 30th or 31st of August. When she leaves her post, she's pledged that she will release the Xinjiang report. The Xinjiang report can't be released until it's fact checked. It needs to be fact checked. The Xinjiang report would have started on the basis of thousands and thousands of allegations. Those allegations need investigation. Michelle Bachelet went to China, came to China, went to Xinjiang and Guangdong, and she met with very important people, including an online virtual with Xi Jinping. She made it quite clear that her visit was not an investigation. It was never planned to be an investigation. It was always planned to be setting the scene for future negotiations, future discussions, and a future pathway. That's what she said she would do, and that is what she has done. Now, one thing that the media has completely forgotten and completely left out is on the 13th of June this year, 2 weeks after she got back from her visit to China, she made an oral statement to the United Nations. And in that oral statement, she pledged that she would release this report. She also discussed that she had seen all the things she set out to see, and China had not hidden anything. She expressed concerns about Hong Kong. She expressed concerns about Tibet. She expressed concerns about Taiwan and Xinjiang. She's expressed these concerns, and she's made it very clear that the Human Rights Commission, her role will finish, but the job that she set out to do, which is to start the process in motion, is well underway. So I can send you a link to this oral report that she gave on the 13th of July, and you can post it in the description. Anybody who wants to read
Sure.
it can read it. She's not hiding anything at all. She's been quite clear, except when she is clear that she's not hiding anything, mainstream media seems to forget that this has happened. They missed that. They'll have great headlines about what China is doing according to anonymous sources, but no headlines about what Michelle Bachelet actually did.
One
Not
of the things
anonymous.
that she one of the things that she said very publicly in her report is that she has a plan to open a human rights office from the United Nations in China. That is one of her projects. That is one of the things that she wants to do. That is a
Mm-hmm.
huge development. That is a
Yeah,
huge step forward for China for human rights. Are people
yeah.
talking about that? Are people even that was mentioned in passing during her speech? Nobody picked up on that. Why? Because it's positive? Because
Uh,
it doesn't
they would
make
love.
China look bad? Why?
It's propaganda by omission again, and we see this a lot in China. There's
Mm,
another thing. I actually saw a headline that says she's resigned, and this is fake. This is complete fake news.
mm,
Michelle Bachelet has not resigned. She was appointed on a 4-year term. Human rights
mhm,
commissioners may serve 2 terms. Since the position was opened and created in 1994, only one has. Most of them have left after 4 years. One of them, I think there's only been 7 of them, 6 or 7 of them. One of them was assassinated in Baghdad, and he was replaced on a temporary measure by somebody who was a human rights lawyer who went back to being a human rights litigator afterwards when another one was appointed. Only one, and that's a South African lady who served, I think, for 2 terms and then stepped down. Michelle Bachelet is 70 years old. This is
mm.
the most high pressure position probably in the United Nations, because you're fending off allegations from everybody who is deflecting from what you're trying to do. So at the end of 4 years of doing this, a 70-year-old person, any person who's 70-year-old, was probably likely to say, I did a good job there, but I'm ready to settle down now. She wants to go and spend time with her children and grandchildren and really just be a retiree back home
Mm.
in Chile. I'm sure that's what she's thinking. I don't think she ever set out to do 2 terms. You don't set out for an 8-year plan when you're in your late 60s. I'm 64. I wouldn't take a job that lasted more than 1 year if one was offered to me. I'd say, I'll just take 1 year of that because I think, we'll see how we go. We're talking about 4 years in the most high pressure job possibly in the world, because you've got so many conflicting interests. I mean, the biggest part of her job is that the United States came back into the Human Rights Commission or Human Rights Council. And when they came back, they immediately start making allegations, making a lot of noise about human rights in the rest of the world. Human rights includes poverty. America has rising poverty. Human rights includes hunger. America has a rising hunger problem. Human rights includes incarceration. America has the world's biggest incarceration problem. Human rights includes crime and safety and stability. Human rights in America are shocking, yet America are making her life so much more difficult by pointing at places like Cuba, where there's no evidence of human rights abuses, pointing at places like China, where there are thousands of allegations, but there's very little in the way of solid evidence. Very little. I mean, I've looked at this from a legal standpoint. I can't find any evidence. And then we look at someone like Jack James in the Co-West-Pro papers, who has done immense amount of work in refuting from a legal standpoint that there is forced labor in China or in Xinjiang particularly, or with Uyghurs. She can't find any. All she can find is allegations and insinuations which don't stand up to legal scrutiny. So her job now, Michelle Bachelet's job now, is to step back and let the investigators do their job, and through that office that she said she wants to start up. China is going to allow her to do that. China's got no fear. That's the problem that they don't like. China has no fear of scrutiny because there's nothing to be afraid of. China is responsible for the largest poverty alleviation scheme in history. China is responsible for the largest infrastructure systems in history. China is responsible for the largest GDP growth in history, the largest amount of government satisfaction rate in history. It's all here in China. It's completely the opposite to what America, where they have all those problems, alleges China has. So that's why I think she's probably stepped down.
The thing that bothers a lot of people is these unaccountability that it stems from making accusations when your house on fire. In the United States, for example, there are war crimes. There are recorded war crimes in Australia as well. And none of the people that were guilty of these war crimes, the decisions that were made, are facing any type of repercussion. There's
in
no,
fairness, in Australia they are. In Australia, there are court cases ongoing now. There's all kinds of different things going. Now, I'm not suggesting that Australia's got it all right. The International Criminal Court is not involved, but the Australian government is investigating war crimes in Iraq, Afghanistan. Unfortunately, they're also prosecuting whistleblowers, but that's a different story.
One of the things that concerns me the most is how a lot of attention has been given to somebody like Adrian Sands when he makes accusations about China. We talked about his credibility as a researcher. Somebody on Twitter was pointing out that when they go into website like ResearchGate or Google Scholar, he's great as a researcher, wouldn't actually qualify him to be an assistant professor. But this is a person that every mainstream media is latching onto to create scandalous headlines left and right. You all remember that huge mistake that he made in his statistic analysis when he saw 80% when it was in fact 8%. And he was this mistake was pointed out, and he went on uncorrected for several months. And at some point he went on, edited the file, but do it as quietly as possible. So you gotta wonder what kind of researcher can you trust? Remember, we did a video with Brian Berletic, and we were reading the conclusion on his investigation on the cotton industry forced labor research, and his conclusion is it is impossible to know whether there is coerced work or not. As in, we don't know. We really don't know.
In other words, I have an opinion that it is, but it's not possible to prove that.
I can't really show you, but here's my thought. Here's what I think. And the latest one was the modification, and this is something that Jacques pointed out from COES Pro. She pointed out that Adrian Sands has modified freely the definition of an ILO violation, International Labor Organization
Yeah.
violation. It went from coerced mobilization of labor to just mobilization of labor. And that has
Which
huge implications for a lot of people, including Australia, because
yeah.
Australia had a program, I don't remember, but you might know, in which, well, people were offered to mobilize to other places to develop and to work in other places. So they would fit into that new description of an ILO violation by Adrian
There's
Sands.
actually in Australia, there's two aspects that would fit into that. One is that if you want to be a migrant in the health industry, the education industry, a migrant is required to spend 2 years in a rural area before they get their permanent residency ratified.
Forced
So
labor.
if yeah, well, if you're a nurse, for example, you go to Australia as a nurse, you have to get an IELTS score of 7. You go there working as a nurse, and then once you get there to work, you must work in a rural area. That's an enforcement, yeah. But then they say, well, it's not enforced because you have a choice. You don't have to come to Australia. So that's
Mm,
one aspect of it. They can say you can choose not to come to Australia, but if you choose to come to Australia, here's a policy that we have. So
mhm,
yeah, you could work your way around that one. The other one is the Kanakas, and this is a very very little known part of Australian history, and the Solomon Islands is a great example of what happens here. The Solomon Islands is one part of the Pacific Island nations, or Pacific Island countries. And those Pacific Island countries supply regularly and have done historically for a couple of hundred years, certainly since the beginning of Australia as a founding. These Pacific Island nations supply the growers or the pickers of the fruit, the cane cutters and things like that. It used to be pre-World War, it used to be Italians and Maltese, people like that coming from rural areas of Europe were and this is why you have so many names like Albanese, the new prime minister. A lot of Italian migrants came over there as cane cutters, that kind of job. Now, the Pacific Island nations have been doing this for years. They come across seasonal work. They're underpaid in terms of Australian labor because the Australian laborers can't do it. They're too expensive. The law says you have
mm,
to pay Australians this much, but you can pay Solomon Islanders, Tongans, Fijians, Samoans, Vanuatuans. They can pay all of these people a lot less because they're coming over as migrant workers on a working visa for a period of time, do their work, and then get back. That's how they've been exploiting labor from the Pacific Islands. Now that China is dealing with the Solomon Islands and some other Pacific Island countries, they're getting very upset. What about our laborers? How are we going to get our laborers if China is giving them jobs? If China is
mm.
helping them to grow their own economies. That's a real fact of life in Australia right now. Not something they're very proud of, but it's something that is a historical fact. Australia has been exploiting Pacific Island nations for 100 years.
It's really, to me, surprising that people take somebody like Adrian Sands seriously.
Yeah.
That they let somebody like Adrian Sands make Michelle Bachelet's life much more difficult. The man is a joker. The man is really unprofessional the way he does his research and his work, and the man is putting other people's lives at risk because of his quest to
Yeah.
end
To
communism
destroy
in
it.
China.
Yeah.
That's all he wants to do. And when we see all these products from Xinjiang from June 21st, as Joe Biden signed last December, that from June 21st, all products from Xinjiang would be deemed to be manufactured or produced with forced labor. That's what is
Unless proven
creating.
otherwise. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
get what is happening. We have all seen the social media posts of hundreds of thousands of Chinese that have taken their holidays in Xinjiang. Humongous traffic jams. There's actually social posts saying like, please don't come to Xinjiang. We don't have any more room. We can't serve you
And they
anymore.
The other thing is, you and I and people like us get ridiculed for our views on this. We get ridiculed by mainstream media. I know that I do, and I'm fairly certain you do. I'm ridiculed as a retired security guard who rides a bike in China.
Mm,
I was the general manager of a division of a multinational corporation, which happened to be in the security industry. So they put me in a uniform, and people now imagine I'm saying, "Hey, mate, you can't park there." That's who I was. In fact, it was slightly different. My role was slightly different, but yeah, I ride a bike in China. You and I have both visited very rural parts of Xinjiang and seen for ourselves what Xinjiang
mm,
is like. Yes, there is a high degree of security. Yes, there are prisons in Xinjiang, but show me a place that doesn't have a prison. Yes, there are people who are unhappy about the situation. But overall, every single person I think I've spoken to in Xinjiang says the same thing. It's much safer now than it used to be. And that's Uyghurs too. Uyghur people will interact with me on my bike with my wife, chatting with us and helping us out, helping us with foods and drinks and things. And this happens everywhere we go. We interact with weaker people. I've got photographs of myself doing this. Now, why would a weaker person interact with a foreigner if that foreigner is, well, why would they interact with me if they're afraid? That's probably the
mm,
best way to look at it. If they're afraid of something going on, why would they bother interacting with a foreigner? I mean, we know, you and I know for a fact, because we've been there, we've seen for ourselves, there's no evidence of forced labor in Xinjiang. There's no evidence of genocide. There's no evidence of mass incarceration. There's no evidence of a large group of people that appear to be oppressed. And there is every evidence of the opposite. There are mosques everywhere you go. In Urumqi, every second corner has one. There's a religious freedom there. People say, but they can't wear the hijab. Go have a look in Washington at the World Uyghur Congress. How many of them wear a hijab? None.
mm-hmm.
Are they oppressed? Are they being oppressed by Washington not to wear hijab? It's not their tradition. They wear a little cap, and that's what they do. The ladies will wear a headscarf or something around their neck. They don't wear the hijab. This is not their tradition. They do a lot of dancing and singing, and I'll have to be honest, I'm fed up with the views of that. But the fact is, that is their nature. They do that kind of thing. So yeah, I think the Adrian Zen's narrative, and if we take everything back to Adrian Zen's, everything stems from that one person.
Yeah.
Everything. They're all circular referencing each other, and Adrian Zen's now references other people who reference him. So this
Mm-hmm.
this is how it's going around. And really, I could do that. I could write an article, send it to you. You could say that a Chinese expert has said this, reference me, and I could say that this is supported by other Chinese experts and reference you. That's what they're doing. That's how
Yeah.
it works. And the guy has quite categorically said, God has told him to destroy communism in China. God has told him to do this. Now,
If that's
I
not a conflict of interest.
I don't have a problem with people who have religious backgrounds, religious beliefs, whatever your religious belief. I don't have a religious belief myself, but I have no problem with people who choose to do so. My mother and father did. They're very, very. I'm getting an information to tell me that I need to plug in my power, or you are. I'm
And I'm
not
also
sure.
running out of
Yeah.
battery. Look,
Oh, it's you
Jerry.
that got that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why don't we cut it short, and we
Yeah.
could
Let's
just
do that.
revisit this topic anytime. So thank you so much, Jerry,
Yeah.
for sharing this time with me, and all of you guys watching. Thank you so much. Remember to like, comment, share, and follow Jerry on his Twitter account, also
Yeah.
on his several YouTube channels. So all the information will be in the comments down below. And well, we wish Michelle Bachelet the best, and hopefully this report is going to be out and everything is going to be okay. Don't believe so much noise out there. Jerry, a
It's not.
last goodbye.
Thanks, Fernando. Thank you for everything. And I'll send you a couple of links so you can attach them.
Perfect. Okay, guys, until we see you again, take it easy and bye for now.
See you. Bye bye.